high energy requirements, and little space. Renewable energies need to be used efficiently in cities. Here we see PVT solar panels that not only produce electricity with the help of solar radiation, but also produce heat at the same time. Yes, these are photovoltaic thermal solar panels that have a heat exchanger on the back to capture solar thermal and renewable energy. In dense urban areas where other sources are difficult to access, PVT fits in very well. PVT panels combine two technologies: photovoltaics, which converts solar energy into electricity, and solar thermal energy, which uses the sun's energy for heating. This house in Frankfurt is around 150 years old. There are 7 apartments with just over 600 square meters that need to be supplied with heat. Tim Weber is the owner. He lives in the house himself and wants to heat it climate neutrally. His problem is that for a geothermal heat pump, a large drill would have to bore a hole in the garden for a probe. Standing here, you can see the flowers. This is a beautiful garden in the middle of Frankfurt, completely surrounded by walls. We can't get in the back here. There is no way for the large machines to get into the garden to drill the large borehole for the geothermal probe. An alternative to that would be an air-to-water heat pump. However, this requires an outdoor unit for the ambient air. An air-water pump would have been an alternative, but then we would have had to put it in the garden, and we just didn't want to do that. So we opted for the PVT alternative. It doesn't need any space here in the garden. These space-saving modules are pulled onto the roof by the installation team. There are 44 of them in total, each weighing around 30 kilograms. These are photovoltaic panels combined with a heat exchanger on the back. On top is the photovoltaic panel itself. This is where the electricity is produced, where it is then transferred via the cable and strung together to the other panels, and then connected to the inverter down below to generate electricity. Down here, this is the heat exchanger. It's a huge cooling rib, like the radiator in a car. The larger the surface area, the more heat can be absorbed. This means that when the sun is shining and the heat passes through the module, I get the rest of the solar heat. When the sun is not shining, I have a huge heat exchanger here. It works like an air-water heat pump and collects the energy via this heat exchanger. The special PVT panels are installed on the roof by specialists. The power cables are laid under the roof tiles. The cables for the solar thermal system connections, on the other hand, run along the top of the roof. A total of 60 meters of stainless steel pipes are laid for this purpose. When the sun shines, the cells produce electricity. At the same time, the entire module heats up, including the heat exchanger on the underside. A glycol water mixture, known as brine, flows through it. The brine, heated by the sun, flows along the facade of the house into the cellar and then into a heat pump. The warmer the ambient heat used by the heat pump, the less electricity it needs to heat the house. Conventional air-to-water heat pumps only use the heat from the ambient air. Due to the solar radiation, however, the brine in the PVT collector can get much warmer. As a result, more renewable energy is available, and the entire system works far more efficiently. It's the efficiency of a heat pump with geothermal energy, much more efficient than an air-water heat pump. So you have a geothermal heat pump without having to drill. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. And a word about us. Renewables.film conveys the energy transition through journalistic films. We would be grateful for your support. so that science and technology documentaries of high quality can continue to be produced. You can find more information under the video in the description. There are even more advantages to such an innovative system. On a partly sunny day in November, for example, a regular solar panel can barely use the heat from the roof. However, the heat pump now raises the temperature of the brine from the roof, approximately 20 degrees Celsius, to heating temperature. It is also possible for the heat produced for heating to be stored. The system only uses ambient air if the sun is not visible for a longer period of time. The panel would then extract heat from the air via the large heat exchanger, just like an air-to-water heat pump. The air flows from top to bottom through the rib and heats the brine. The whole process is carried out without a fan. The process is completely silent. This means that a house with this PVT system is able to use 3 green energies: solar power, solar heat, and the renewable energy of the ambient air. The energy balance is impressive. Although the residential building in Frankfurt is an older pre-war building with high ceilings and normal radiators, the heat pump produces almost 4 kilowatt-hours of heat from 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity over the course of the year. For the tenants, this means lower heating costs. Different versions of these new PVT panels are being tested at the Fraunhofer Institute in Freiburg in southwest Germany. Scientists simulate realistic environmental conditions. Special lamps emit the light spectrum of the sun. This enables the scientists to determine the performance of the modules. PVT can perform as well as a geothermal probe as a source for the heat pump, and can even replace the geothermal probe. You can save a lot of money. There is one problem the PVT modules have, though. If the sun is not shining and heating is required, the PVT modules will extract heat from the ambient air. This happens without a fan, though, and this may lead to ice forming on the surface. You can see here in the video what it's like in day-night mode. When the temperature gets very low, then there is a light frost on the surface. There are a few things happening here. First of all, there is not much moisture in the cold air. What we see here does not happen all too often over the course of a year. And even in this extreme case, it is possible to continue to extract environmental heat with the right design. So the heat pump will still draw energy from the environment. Exactly. Scientists at the Fraunhofer Institute are not only testing PVT panels that are open on one side, like an air heat exchanger, they are also testing PVT panels that are constructed more like conventional solar thermal modules. The design of the collectors can be tweaked so that they can reach higher temperatures if they are stripped at the back and stripped at the front, meaning more designed like a normal solar thermal collector. The ideal temperature can then also be attained more easily. Such closed PVT systems, which cannot freeze, are already in use. For example, in the City of London. Here too, energy requirements are high and space is limited. Which is why several hundred vacuum tube collectors have been installed on the roof of the British Library. And they really pack a punch. In a glass tube, there is an absorber in a vacuum. Solar cells are installed on the absorber. The entire unit converts solar radiation into electricity and heat. The difference compared to open PVT collectors is that temperatures of up to 75 degrees Celsius can be reached here. These panels can also be combined with heat pumps to increase efficiency in the entire system. The warm water from the vacuum tubes provides both heating and air conditioning in the world's largest national library. The library contains, among other things, original manuscripts from William Shakespeare. The use of PVT collectors with a closed loop, which supply electricity and plenty of hot water, is particularly useful if the hot water is needed all year round, even in summer, for example. Like in the food industry. Here the belts have to run and then be cleaned using lots of hot water. Hospitals are also an ideal location for the use of this new technology. They too have high electricity requirements and need a lot of hot water, even in the summer. Hotels are another example of where the demand for hot water is high throughout the year. Here, closed-loop PVT systems can make optimum use of the space on the roof. And the innovative modules can do even more. In Berlin, a large solar power unit is being built on an office building. More than 2,000 square meters in total. The technicians are installing two technologies: normal PV modules that only generate electricity, as well as open PVT collectors. They will supply the building with both electricity and heat. And that's not all. These panels have the added advantage that we can get rid of heat at night, for example during the summer by passing the heated brine through them and radiating it into space. When you think about climate change and what measures are needed to help us adapt, this is an option which helps us a lot and will be playing a major role. Due to the glass facade, this building heats up considerably in summer. And this will only increase due to climate change. The engineers therefore use a special energy management system to cool the building. Large heat pumps in the basement produce cooling for the building in summer. A ventilation system in the ceilings maintains a pleasant temperature in the offices. However, the heat pumps also produce heat during this cooling process. This initially flows through heat exchangers into a huge water storage tank adjacent to the building. The water in the tank should not get too hot. This is why the heat pumps cool down the storage tank at night. The heat that is generated from the cooling process flows up to the roof. Here, the heat is released into the Berlin night sky via the heat exchangers on the back of the PVT modules. And all this happens without heating up the city's climate. The engineers developed this heat management system especially for this building. In contrast to conventional air conditioning, we do not heat the air, so there's no noise due to large fans. Heat is discharged into the sky as radiant heat. This means less noise and less strain on the climate in cities, which would otherwise be heated up by the air conditioning systems. Conventional air conditioning systems generate a flow of air that is blown out of the appliances and heats up the surroundings. With PVT panels, heat escapes as infrared radiation directly into the night sky. Space is limited, not only in Berlin or London or Frankfurt. Supplying metropolitan areas with climate-neutral energy is a major challenge. PVT panels use environmental energy very efficiently where space is limited. This technology will play a significant role in the future of urban areas.